I kind of built my own thing. Oh, and I'm not using ChatGPT. I'm sort of not a big fan of OpenAI for a variety of reasons. I was playing around with it at first, but then Sam Altman kind of just showed that he was Sam Altman, and that kind of steered me away from OpenAI pretty fast. I do have some interesting bridge stuff in this GCC thing with the AIs. So this bridges directly with whatever AIs I wanted to. This thing over here, the GTT Control Center. Purple saying, I got my model to 500 million parameters, took 6 days, 8 hours each night training him. Any tips or tricks? Ooh, interesting. That's a great question. Maybe we'll circle back to that guy. Yeah, for sure. And Kaj, if you're loving on GPT, then by all means, you do whatever is kind of jiving with you. I'll just kind of share what my views are, and then you can decide if that. Oh, the GCC Control Center. Yeah. So this thing, no, I just built this entirely from scratch. This is all written in Go. There's some Python, but mostly the Python's just tests and integration things. So it's not a web UI. It actually runs on the bare metal. And right now I've got it working just for Windows. It's mostly to keep track of all the things going on with GTT. Hey, Narenja. But yeah, at some point I'm going to do a deep dive over how I built this thing and all the cool things that it does. It does quite a few different things. It has this integrated code editor in it, and asset management. And then I've got all this social stuff that it keeps track of all the things that are going on with the different social. I guess it's kind of made a little bit for influencers, but then it's kind of for development nerds and people that are hardcore AI. It's just kind of like I needed a thing to do all the crazy stuff that I want to do. And so I was like, okay, I just should build this thing. And yeah, we'll see where it goes. Okay, let's check this. We've got Facebook is rolling. We've got TikTok, supposedly. Never really know about that. Twitch is rolling in. We've got IG. See all the IGers. And we've got YouTube. So we've got the whole suite of folks. And as I think many of you guys know, today we're going to get into this stuff. And our topics for today are Opus 5 and what my experience has been with that, which is captured in all these fun cards that I put together. And hey, Mike. Hey, Al. What's going on, folks? Hey, by the way, since we're just getting started, if you guys want to do roll call, you know how much I love hearing where everybody's dialing in from. And as per always, I think all you guys know, I'm NorCal over here. So drop in wherever you're dialing in from. And let us know. Yeah, Tom, we know Tom's from the UK. Antarctica, sweet, man. That's got to be a little chilly. Here, check this out. So I can just like mute you. Just kidding. Cleveland. Okay, sweet. Excellent. England, yes. We've got some Pennsylvania, Florida. What is this? Tuzinia? Is that a real place? India, Spain, Seattle. Hey man, Seattle's a great place. Actually, Jeff Dean, I think, actually did his PhD at University of Washington. As I was just, hey, Walnut Creek. Wow, look at that. Forge, you're pretty close. Lebanon. Wow. Oh my gosh, this is so awesome. Argentina, Ukraine, Austria. Wow. San Juan. I love it. Man, it's so diverse. Oh, it's got the, once in a while it does this double thingamabob. Look at this. There's, you can tell that I built this myself because there's all these strange bugs. You know, it's realware if it has, yeah, if not perfect. Actually, let me pull this guy over here. Oh, and for anybody on, I see a whole bunch of people on IG. I'll try to keep things front and center for the IGers and TikTokers, but today is going to be one of those days where we're going to go use a lot of the screen. So if you can hop on to Facebook, Twitch, or YouTube, you might have a little bit better experience so you can see like wider. But I understand that's not always possible. So North Africa, excellent. Okay, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I'm terrible with geography. Oh, I get so annoyed with this stupid little double. What if I just maximize it? If that'll fix it. Let's try that. Oh, sweet. Purple, that was you? On the... Hold on, let me harass Claude about this. Claude, there's this stupid double line output error in the chat that shows up only during live streams, and it's happening right now. Please debug and fix this dumbness. Let me just do a quick screenshot of this. All right. This is like true multitasking madness. While we're doing the live stream, I'm going to send Claude to do some work in the background. Okay. Oh, yeah. So going back to purple. Here, let me bring this over to the center so you guys can see it on IG and TikTok. He's saying that there's this post from DARPA project manager on LinkedIn, actually. So I love that so much. I went in and I think I'm going to have to close that one. And I want to bring LinkedIn up to show you guys this comment. That's a great one. Thanks for reminding us, Purple. This is, I think, a fantastic comment, and it actually it kind of reflects all the stuff that we're talking about, which is cybercrime, security breach, and hacking people without a red team agreement is that's a felony. So Like, yeah. And it seems I'm not the only one that is making this observation. Let me bring this guy up. You guys can see this. It actually warmed my heart the moment I saw it. And so this guy, I'm not connected to him. I've actually worked with DARPA quite a bit in the past. Well, let me just make sure everybody can see this. All right, yeah. So yeah, thanks. Let me, oh, I gave you some hearts for that. So great. But let's take a quick look at this. This is a little bit off the agenda, but it's following in line with everything we're talking about. So David Dewhurst, he's a program manager at DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, I think, something like that. I don't know. There's a lot of sort of redundancy in that. But basically, you know, it's like the United States sort of defense-oriented, largest research-funded arm in the U.S. That's specifically for defense-related contracts, and they do the things like the DARPA Grand Challenges, all those things. So there's a lot of big things that come out of DARPA, and like a lot of people kind of think that they're at least somewhat responsible for autonomous vehicles, since the autonomous vehicles got a huge kickstart from some of the early DARPA Grand Challenges they were doing long before, like, I think Tesla came around and started to do it, and other folks. But anyway, so this guy posts 3 days ago, Thought Bubble, a firm whose weapons repeatedly detonated by themselves would be forced to stop that from happening and would be shut down if it could not. All right. Then he goes on and says, a firm whose employees repeatedly hacked into other organizations would fire those employees. The former employees would be subject to legal sanctions. Yeah, 100%. If the firm encouraged such behavior, it itself would be subject to legal sanctions. A firm whose self-driving cars hit pedestrians would be required to stop driving its cars and demonstrate that such accidents wouldn't happen again. We know this, yeah, because this has already happened, right? This one in particular, Uber was slammed by this. There was an accident in Arizona where one of their autonomous vehicles, I think, actually hit, and the person that was hit didn't survive. And then Uber, I think, was mandated to shut down their autonomous driving experiments in Arizona until they kind of cleared some stuff. And then they also got things shut down, like in San Francisco. There's like a whole bunch of stuff. But anyway, I then commented and said, yeah, so I saw this morning, Purple, and loved it. Oh, yeah, just saw it. 100%. I'm going to get big time into this and share what I really think about Opus. And so Jasad's question, we need your real honesty. Are these models capable of deep insight? Is it worth building a business around despite the high cost of self-hosting? Yeah, look, this is a great, just brilliant question. And we're going to talk specifically about that as our first topic. Yep. And I think it's a mixed bag. But we're going to deep dive on this one. So anyway, going back to this DARPA comment, I commented back this morning as soon as I saw it. Our friends on Discord let me know about it. Actually, we should let the Discord folks know that we're live. Whoops, I can't type. All right. Discord folks are where? Anyway, so then I commented back on this DARPA thing saying, I'm hearing this loud and clear. These AI hacks aren't happening by themselves, especially when AI companies themselves are removing the guardrails for them to be able to achieve these behaviors. These hacks are felonies. And then I gave a link to one of the clips that we put out that people seem to like. I think it was a few days ago, which basically says the same thing, that I think these guys need to be, I think some people need to be going to jail, to be honest. And I think that both OpenAI and Anthropic should be slammed with a really hefty fine, because they didn't have red team agreements, to the best of my knowledge, which is a precursor to do any of this security research, if that's what they're calling it. And so they should be treated just like any other cyber criminal would be treated, which is they would be arrested and their hardware, their equipment would be seized. And yeah, kind of like bad things would happen. So, yeah. Anyway, I love that comment. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's like exactly what the purpose of the Discord is. And give me 1 second. I think Claude killed GTT. Claude, you killed the GCC chat. I had to shut it down, restart it, you idiot. This is the story of my life, or the last 2 weeks, guys. Like, for real. Opus 5, let me tell you, it's got some problems. It has some big issues. All right. So now we have the main GCC. Cool. Okay, the main GCC is up. I need the chat window now. And then once we get that rolling, excuse me, we're going to start with Opus. And I'm going to do my deep dive on what my kind of knee-jerk thoughts are on Opus over the last 2 weeks. Let's give Claude a moment to see if it can run a shell script. Look at that. So do you see how long that took? I asked it to do this simple command. I think that took it a minute and a half to do that. And that is, and yeah, it looks like it's totally hosed the, look at this, it completely broke all the colorization on the chat with its fix. Look at that. Oh, really? Vaping can get you banned? What platform can, I mean, not like I'm going to stop vaping, but what platforms ban people when they vape? I'm curious. And by the way, I believe you. I'm just more curious which ones I'm going to get banned from, since I'm going to keep doing it. Okay, hold on. Let's see. Claude, you steaming pile of garbage. You just removed all the colorization from the chat window. Good job. That's the 1 millionth thing you've broken in the last 2 weeks. You idiot. Literally, this has been a large majority of the comments that I've been sending to Claude. Claude, you steaming pile of garbage. You just removed all the colorization from the chat window. Good job. That's the 1 billionth thing you broke in the last 2 weeks, you idiot. That's actually me being super nice, that some of these are definitely not family friendly. Yeah, someone's asking, where can you watch the stream? I think I saw that. Yeah, so you can watch this stream on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch. And all those links are, at least the YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook links are all in the, oh, look at that. Okay, there. Now it's tried to fix it. All right, we're back. All right, guys. I think it's time for us to get into my quick overview of my experience with Opus. And before I dive in, I want to share that I'm going to try my best to be as fair and as honest as possible. I'm not going to share anything that's sort of like personal bias and, you know, I don't like these guys, so I'm going to try to convince you to not use them because I have a personal grievance. None of that. Try to give you the analysis truly from like a scientific perspective and substantiate it with as much data as possible. And that's actually what I did. Is I spent this morning going over, and we essentially gathered up as much of the concrete metrics that I could based on my experience using Opus 5 to give you insight into how long I've been using it, the things that I've seen, and the concrete failures that I've experienced, and then maybe some of the good things that I've had with it. But what I'll say right from the get-go, the summary of this for Opus 5, my very strong conviction after using it for, I guess, 150 hours, 10 days. By the way, this is all this tabulated data here that you're seeing on your screen. This came directly from Opus. Opus actually curated and scanned my logs, and it built all of these graphs from real data that I have in using it for things like GCC and the video pipeline stuff that I've been building. So this is not me inventing any numbers. This is actually the AI itself gathering this. I was actually pretty surprised that it's saying that I was using Opus for 24 hours on these days, but I think many of you know I'm a little kind of crazy. Oh, the streaming links in the Discord post. Yeah, I think that were they not in there? Oh, I guess in this one they're not. Okay, look, yeah, actually, let's... Sorry about that. Yeah, here are the main ones. I just kind of assume that if you're on the Discord, you kind of know. Like, I'm not trying to be a jerk, but I kind of feel like if you're on the GTT Discord, you kind of would know where GTT is, because that's how you probably got to the Discord. But sure, there are the 3 links you can follow, and that should take you there. Oh my gosh, this is so on point. Arfin is saying this. Oh my gosh, let me tell you, this has been my life. What Arfin is saying right here. I probably haven't used this many slurs in the previous 44 years of my life, combined with what I've used with Claude in the last 6 months, more precisely since the 4.6 downgrade. Absolutely. This has been what I've been, in fact, just to go a little bit deeper on that, Arvind, check this out. I created a slide, angry prompts per day. Okay, I'm telling you, it has to have been more than just 10. But then there's some specific ones that it pulled out on, this is me, by the way, the all caps, this is me typing in all caps, and this has been curated to remove the F-bombs that yes. So this is what I'm talking about. For those of us that have been using Opus a lot, somebody was actually arguing on IG this morning that their experience with Opus 5 has been fantastic. And man, I gotta be honest, I wish that mine was. Right? My goal is not to bash on the AIs. I think all of you guys know that I'm an AI enthusiast. I'm a tech fanatic. I love technology, science, engineering, mathematics. This is like my bread and butter. That I live, eat, breathe, and sleep this stuff. So I want this stuff to be really, really good. I don't want it to be awful. And with Opus 5 in particular, I'm telling you, I have to take breaks after using it for some period of time because it's so frustrating. Just this morning, in putting together these slides, there were mistakes that it was making, and then I would correct it and say, okay, like for example, the colorization. I would say, Claude, you can't just randomly make one thing red and the other thing blue. Colors mean things, and so be consistent with the colors. And it's like, okay, yeah, I've got it. And then it fixes it. 5 minutes later, it does exactly the same thing again. And then I'm like, Claude, we just talked about this 5 minutes ago. How are you regressing this fast? And then it's like, oh, you're right. I'm so sorry. I've regressed. Yes, you did tell me, blah, blah, blah. And then it fixes it. And then it does it again. And so the amount of time that you spend telling it to stop making the same mistakes are insane. It truly is a test of your patience and your stoicism, and it's like absolutely pushing me to my limits. And I got to tell you, that was not my experience with Opus 4.8. I've been using Opus, as many of you know, I've been using Opus 4.8 for the last 6 months or something. I've written just in GCC alone, Opus 4.8 and I have been, sorry, did I say 4.6? 4.8. We've written together about 100,000 lines of code in Go and Python. We've built the whole GCC system that you see in front of here, right? And there was some leveling up, but what I saw with Opus 4.8 is it would learn that. I mean, it did take some time. I did have to yell at it about literals and stuff and try to say, this is in your rules. Why do you keep making these mistakes? But it felt like it would gradually get better, and it certainly wouldn't regress immediately. Like I would find that it might regress after 24 hours, but it wouldn't regress to making the same mistakes after like 5 minutes. Whereas with Opus 5, I'm telling you, you can tell it to do something, and then in 3 minutes, it will make the same mistake again. Like you literally just didn't tell it to not make this mistake. And so here you can see that here's a card on Opus 5, 43 corrective directives in 13 days. So it's logged all of this, right? This is when Opus 5 came out on July 27th up until today. And so I've been using it the whole time, but I did start actively using it around August 2nd. August 2nd is when I started to really start to hammer away. And in the interest of being fair, right, I'm going to try to be fair here. There are some things with Opus 5 that it can do now that Opus 4.8 I had a lot of struggle with. That it's almost like you can see a glimmer of genius that emerges, but it's super fleeting. And so in the time I've been using Opus 5 for the last 2 weeks, but really hardcore over the last week, right? Let's go back to the hours. So it's, again, these are all Opus reported hours. And what I think it's saying is that it basically, I was having it work for 24 hours on 3 of these days. And like, I wasn't working myself for 24 hours. I was obviously sleeping at some point in there. But I do, maybe I'm sleeping 4 to 6 hours, and I have been really cranking on stuff this week. So I guess maybe it has been doing quite a bit of work. But in the time that I've been using it super hardcore over the last week, I would say that there's probably maybe 3 or 4 times where it's done something that was sort of truly genius. In fact, there's one concrete example I want to show you. Because again, I'm trying to be fair. I don't want to just bash it and not kind of give credit where credit's due. And so let me see if I can find this case where I have something in Obsidian where it did figure something out that in the entire time I was working with Opus 4.8, it hadn't been able to figure this out. And working with Opus 5, it was like this massive breakthrough. So give me a second, see if I can find this Obsidian directory. Where is this? Oh, maybe it's in here. Okay. No, not this guy. Where was that? So this is related to the GTL. This is the Goju transcript language, and the Goju transcript language is it's like a high-level programming language that fuses natural language for video editing with programming. So basically what I can do is I can, with all the GTT things, what I do is in the VOD pipeline, it's doing all the editing for me. And then, what's up, Kat? And then from that, I built this new programming language called GTL, which allows me to take a transcript that it's created from any particular clip, and then I can edit the transcript directly and create a new clip or a new edit. Thanks so much, cryptographer. I appreciate the kind words. But there was a problem with the design of GTL, and I want to show you what was the one. Okay, this will probably suffice. All right. And for those of you on IG or TikTok, you're probably not going to be able to totally see this. So you probably want to hop over to YouTube, Twitch, or Facebook to see this. All right. So this is an example of GTL, right? So here you can see this is the name of one of the clips. I think we actually published this clip. And you can see it's got this TS extension. So that here doesn't stand for TypeScript. It stands for transcript. And then down here, you can see the actual transcript of the clip. And so these numbers indicate sort of the starting point of the segment. And then the second number indicates the pause before the first word starts. And then from here, you can see basically what it's transcribed of things that I've said or somebody that is talking during this video. And then inside of here, you'll see these are silence gaps. So what I can do with GTL, or here's essentially the idea of GTL, is that from this, I can go through and say, you know what, I actually want this section to just end early, and I'm going to say I don't want this part. So basically, I can read this and say that it'll go through, and then it escaped from, you'll also hear that they talked about how there are these stolen credentials we're going to get into. And then this last part, a little bit of that wackiness here in a second, I'll just delete. And then what I can do is I can just delete it. And then I can run this script that we created called T to V, transcript to video, on this transcript. And then what it will do is it'll generate a new video from this modified transcript, and it does it all programmatically, right? Okay, so that's kind of the essence of GTL. By the way, once GTL gets hardened and I have all the scripts really hardened, I'm going to open source this so then anybody that's an influencer or does video editing, they can do the same thing. It's basically similar to kind of some of the stuff that you can do with Opus clips. But the reason why I created it is Opus clips, for those of you that have used this thing, it's super flaky. It like has all these problems. It's constantly down, and sometimes it just hangs on the projects. It's basically an unreliable piece of garbage half the time, and I really want to get away from it. So I was like, I'll just build this entire thing myself. All right, now, so let's say that I make this change in GTL, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this, and then I run my script, and then it'll create a new video, and I want to continue using this transcript to make further edits. Okay? Hopefully you guys are all tracking. So what I'm explaining to Opus 5 is that, okay, now after we've made a new video, I want to continue to use this transcript to make more edits. And yeah, Whisper. I think I'm using Whisper, Isabel. But more than just Whisper, we also have an audio wave analyzer. Because Whisper by itself actually has like a bunch of problems. It misses words all the time. But if you use Whisper and you use an audio wave signal analyzer, then you can like get more fidelity. But okay, so that aside, I think you guys are hopefully tracking. So I'm going to make this edit and I delete this line. And then I'm saying now I'm going to make more edits on this transcript. Now, Opus 4.8 was having all kinds of problems with this. It was like, okay, I can do that, but you know, you would try to make 2 edits and then things would just fall apart. Check this out. This was a huge win for Opus 5. This is a massive win. And Opus 5 figured this out. And Opus 4.8, and I've had this GTL thing for months, and Opus 4.8 could not figure this out. After I did the new transcript, Opus 5 basically came back and said, you can't use that transcript again to edit the new video. It's like logically that won't work, Goju. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You know, I deleted the line. This is exactly verbatim what the new transcript is. This absolutely will work. Now, before I tell you why, can anybody on the chat see what the problem is? I want to give you guys a second to see if you can like real time look at this. Hopefully, and if you can't get it, no worries. This is just kind of like the audience can chime in and see if you can debug the design error that I had in the language. And this is a big shout out for Opus 5. It was able to figure this out, and it was absolutely right. And the moment that Opus 5 explained it, I was like, holy shit, Opus, you're totally right. That it can't work this way. And you have to use a new transcript file. You can no longer use this transcript file to edit the new video. That's exactly right. Jay's got it. The timings all change. Why does it change? Because the moment that you delete the text here, any of the timestamps that march forward won't be the same anymore. And those are key indicators to tell it when the segments start. Yeah, exactly right, XBL. Yep. And so for me in my rush or whatever stupidity, I completely missed it. In the past when I was working on this, I just did not, just absent-minded professor over here. Opus hinted at it and I was like, holy bejeebers, you're absolutely right. That is a problem. And so what it does is with the new transcript is it regenerates these subsequent timestamps and then they line up correctly. And if you don't do that, then the timestamp markers for these new sections don't work. And so you can't make subsequent edits. You could make edits on material that's before the prior edit, but anything downstream of it wouldn't work. All right. So that's me trying to be fair and giving Opus 5 a serious shout out on figuring out some rather deep logic on a design error in GTL. And again, in the months that I was using Opus 4.8, it wasn't able to make this deduction. Instead, it just kept generating the transcripts and everything kept breaking because it wasn't wise enough to realize that these timestamps needed to be updated, and it kept reusing the old timestamps when it would generate the transcript, and then I couldn't use GTL. By the way, this is why creating the new clips that are coming out of GTT are happening much faster, is now the GTL system actually works properly. And so we're just cranking on these because I can take the transcripts directly, make minor tweaks to it, and we're killing it. Okay. So the whole point of that story is in the sea of madness that is my life with Opus 5, there have been glimmers. There have been these moments, very brief moments, when Opus 5 is doing something that is actually surprisingly awesome. But those are so infrequent that the overall kind of view that I have is Opus 5 is unquestionably a move in the wrong direction. It is, without qualification, a massive downgrade from Opus 4.8. And the reasons for that are many. We have some more data here on some of the things that went wrong. Some of the things that probably are the most frustrating with Opus 5 is this issue right here. Tasks where I had to reissue the task or I have to chase it. So I will ask it to do something, and I don't know if you guys have experienced this too. I'll ask it to make a revision to a clip, or generate a card, or try to write some small new feature. And it'll work on it, or it will say things like, okay, cool, I've got it. I understand what I'm supposed to do. I'm going to work on that now. And then nothing effing happens. Nothing happens. So literally, it is telling you, okay, I understand the task. I know what I'm supposed to do. And it will even list out, okay, here are the steps that I'm going to take. And then it's not asking for permission. It's not saying, would you like me to do this now? It will say, okay, I'm working on this now. And so if you aren't paying close attention, you'll see that it's saying, okay, it's working on it now. And then you're going to go work on something else. And then I come back to it an hour later and I'm like, what's the status? And then it's really interesting because when I found that it's not working in these cases, it doesn't answer me and tell me, oh, the status is I totally screwed up and I ended up actually not doing any work. What it does is it silently ignores me and then starts working. So then I'll press it and be like, what the hell is the status here? Answer me. Because I can tell that, there's got like the little spinner, right? Like for those of you that don't use Claude, you may not know what I'm talking about. Let's see. I'll say, so you'll type in something like this, and then it'll show you this little, I'm thinking I'm going to do whatever. And then this is your indication that it's working, right? And so when I'm asking it to do something, you'll then see this, and then it'll spit out, okay, I'm going to go ahead and work on this thing. And then suddenly it will just stop. And it will stop not because it's waiting for you to give it guidance, that it has a question. By the way, this is what Opus 4.8 would do all the time. Is Opus 4.8 would get stuck and it'd be like, hey, I'm stuck. Can you tell me what I should do here? Whereas with Opus 5, it will literally just stop. No signal, right? And so you think that it's actually doing something, and it's not at all. This has happened every day that I've used Opus 5. It's happened multiple times every day. This has got to be one of the most frustrating things that I've had with Opus 5. Okay, hold on. So Big Oofta's asking, do they just want you to burn more tokens? So first of all, I can tell you without question that Opus 5 is burning probably 3 times the tokens that 4.8 was. Before, when I was using 4.8, I would regularly burn through over 1 million tokens, maybe once, twice a day per agent that I'm using. With Opus 5, I will burn through 1 million tokens in 2 hours. Easy. Without even doing that much work. So whatever the token multiplier is, like I don't know, I haven't done the calculation, but I would say it's probably north of 2x, probably 3x more tokens, at least according to their claims, than 4.8. So first, as far as the token burns, I think if you're using Opus 5, then yes, you're going to burn significantly more tokens. But what's interesting is I'm on the max plan, right? I'm on the plan that is like I have unlimited tokens and I'm just being regulated by the essentially the token window for some period of time. So what I think it's doing is I think that it has basically a governor built into it that is limiting its throughput to intentionally make it slower. This is my strong conviction, because not only will it just not do the things, I've noticed that it takes significantly longer to do even the most trivial tasks. Like, for example, earlier you guys saw that I told it was an idiot and that I needed it to restart the chat, right? It's somewhere in here. I'll see if I can find it. Okay, it somehow has eaten it. But when I'm asking it to restart the chat window on GCC, just to give you guys a sense of what this task is, it's a script. It's a PowerShell batch file that it's basically as easy as typing the dir or list command. I'll ask Claude to do it, and when it was 4.8, it would do it within seconds. When it's Opus 5, sometimes doing simple tasks like that will take it north of a minute. Sometimes I've seen it take 3 minutes to do something as simple as launch GCC. That's just insanity. Like, why would it take that long when it's just launching an executable? And I'm not talking about it taking 3 minutes to launch GCC after you say launch GCC. I'm talking about actually invoking the command gcc.exe. It will take it like upwards of 3 minutes. Why does it take that long? So something is going massively wrong with Opus 5 in the way that it's actually starting to do work. This happens almost any time you ask it to do a new task. It's pretty crazy. So, okay, so hold on. It's come back with, like I said, there's some seriously harsh language. I'm getting really frustrated with it. Let's see what let me just pull this off screen so I don't overload you guys with vulgarity. Let's see what it says. As far as the number of times I've asked it to do a task where it like legitimately hasn't done the thing and I've had to like ask it again. It's saying it's found at least 7 times in the last 2 days that, yeah, it's found, I think, yeah, at least 7 times in the last 2 days where I have asked it to do something and then it just randomly stopped working. Think about this if this were like an employee, right? Like if you had an employee work for you and you had to remind the employee to like finish doing its job, that employee would just be fired, right? I don't think anybody would keep an employee that's not going to actually do the work. This is like a major problem with Opus 5 that did not exist with 4.8. And it's really frustrating. Here you can see like the number of times that I've been yelling at. This is all basically in the last 2 weeks. 113 times I've yelled at it. 83 times I've had anger. 143 times it's had a bad tool call. 35 times. What is that? That's 3 times a day. Basically, I've had to ask it to do the task again or chase it down. Look at this. This one is like super novel, right? 32 times it refused to do something I'm asking it to do. Or basically just said that it couldn't be done. Oh, and I also have a rule that basically once I ask it to do something, don't ask for permission if you can do it. That basically if I say, go search the internet on these types of things, sometimes the AIs are kind of stupid and they will be like, do I have your permission to use the internet? And it's like, I literally just asked you to use the internet. Why are you asking me this? So there's a rule that I have that says, don't ask me for permission to do the thing if I've just asked you to do it. And 24 times it's broken that rule, even though it's a burned in rule that it should not ask. And then what happens is you send it to do something and then I close the window, right? Because I'll work on other things because my goal is to get the AIs to do work, to be super productive, like work off to the side. And then once it's doing that thing, then I work on other things. So I don't sit there and like micromanage it. The whole point is for it not to be micromanaged. But if it does this halting thing, it basically makes it so you kind of have to micromanage it, which in my mind is sort of the opposite of what you want it to do. Okay, I think that there's some questions here. Let me circle back on some of these. I'll come back to this one in a second. Somebody was asking if I do... Okay, so Big Oofta, I think in some cases it is overthinking, or supposedly they're claiming it's overthinking. Sometimes I think that it just drifts and just does nothing. And I don't know why this is happening, but literally it's just like it'll start to do the thing and then it'll just be like, I'm bored, and just idle for no reason. Okay, so Paga's asking, do you do peer reviews for software and sites? Not really, but if like it's somebody that is a jeeter or a jeet and they want me to look at a software design or something, generally if they're a friendly, I might try to carve out some time to look at their design and give them some guidance. So yeah, Paco, if you have a case like that, like you need me to look at something, probably you want me to look at it like a high level design thing, probably not look at the code, because other people could do that maybe as well. Probably significantly better. But yeah. Oh, and awesome, Paco. Yeah, thanks for becoming a member. That's awesome. Oh, sweet. Yeah, we're actually going to, Rishi, we're going to talk about Spark here when we get into, or Muse. We're going to talk about this once we get into the security stuff. It's awesome that you just brought that up. Yeah, James, it sucks because I think that is a lot of what's unfortunately happening. So James is saying, let me move this over just so the IGers can see it and the TikTokers. James is saying, Tetcha, what's going on, bro? I just saw you, and now you've jumped off the screen. Where was that? Oh, hold on. I can do this feature. Or no, I can't. Huh. Okay, I've lost it. But somebody was basically asking, oh, it's James that was asking it. So James is asking, can we all just agree that AI is a cool circus trick, but BS when it comes to real work logistics? That's so. I hate the fact that unfortunately, at least with Opus 5, I sort of have to agree with that. I think many of you guys know my goal is to be building AIs that are real systems that are going to help us be more productive and, handle a lot of the minutia. And unfortunately, with Opus 5, I can tell you that it has sort of a little bit of this shiny new toy flair to it, because you'll have those moments of like genius, as we saw with GTL, but those are so few and far between. It is a little bit more like a little bit of a circus trick, unfortunately. And in fact, one of the things that we gathered here is I got some quotes from other people. I thought I did. Hold on. Let's bring this over here. Unless Claude wiped that out. That's me yelling at it. Oh. It could be that Claude deleted it. Wouldn't surprise me. But there were other analyses that I was gathering from other people that are sort of like pretty seasoned technologists. And yeah, I think maybe, where was that? Okay, maybe it was in this section. Okay, yeah, maybe it was over here. All right. So here's some more data on Opus 5. Let's kind of go to the back here. So here's a little bit of a timeline of sort of expectations of things. And one of the things that I think people have observed is you've got the 5 series now. It's sort of like, I think they were trying to reach this 5 baseline for a lot of things. So they have Sonnet 5, Fable 5, Mythos 5, and Opus 5 now. And then the idea is, okay, now we're going to IPO somewhere around here. And what's really interesting is that the Opus system, the Opus family of models, is supposedly like one of the most popular and the most widely used. And it's really interesting that there was no discussion about it directly from Dario since its launch 2 weeks ago. I think that at least that was a little bit surprising to me. But here are some of the general claims about its efficacy. Let me close some of this stuff. And so I think this is all published from Anthropic. Essentially, we basically take this all with a grain of salt. We don't know that we can actually trust this. But they did have some self-reporting on things that they found themselves. And I thought that this was okay, somewhat reasonable or somewhat cool that they were sharing that there were some downsides. So again, this is coming directly from Anthropic on Opus 5. They're saying that the responses run longer, and I'm guessing that means it's taking longer to handle these things. Maybe it's talking about the actual answers, the summaries of the things it's doing. This expanded scope, that it's adding steps that weren't requested, I think that this is absolutely true, that there's these sort of additional steps that it will put in to the things you're asking it to do. This last piece about it doing additional steps of verification, I think this is 100% true. Supposedly, somebody was asking if part of the reason why they think that it's slow is it's just doing a lot of verification. I think that that's one of the arguments that Anthropic has, is part of the reason why it's 2x or 3x slower is that it's doing double and triple verification of its quality before it kind of says that it's finished. And even with that, I find that the number of mistakes it makes are pretty enormous. So I don't know that this, like, I do think that this is happening in some cases. I don't know that it's necessarily improving the quality, because at least from what I've seen, Opus 4.8 felt like the quality was superior than Opus 5, except for certain small cases. There's like the one-off case that I was showing with, with the GTL, and there's maybe a couple others where it's had these glimmers of genius. That's happened maybe 3 or 4 times in the 2 weeks I've been using it, and then that's been pretty amazing. But those aside, what I'm finding is the actual quality of the system has declined significantly from Opus 4.8. Oh, this is James is making a really awesome comment, and I find this to be 100% true. Almost every time I ask it stuff, it just responds by lying. It gets worse the more educated I become in my field. Absolutely. I catch it lying or just saying falsified things all the time. In fact, when I was putting the slide deck together, I was telling it that Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella was saying that he's in favor of open weight models, and I want his quote. And it immediately pushed back and said, I can't generate that card because Satya Nadella never said this, and I won't I won't produce any content and claim a citation for something that didn't happen. And then I'm like, okay, Opus, how about you search the internet and see the case where Satya has actually said it, and then tell me that it's a lie. And then it went out and searched, and then it finds the case where Satya actually said it. And then it's like, going back to your comment, James, is saying that, oh, I'm sorry, you're right, my bad. I made a boo-boo, and I'm going to now do it. But the way that it kind of like asserts knowledge on things is really frustrating, because rather than doing discovery and trying to actually figure out if it knows something, it seems to be shortcutting in many of these cases. And because of that, it's slowing things down significantly, because then what you do is you spend time arguing with it, rather than if it would just actually spend the time trying to figure out the answer and then realizing that, oh, this is actually the answer, things would just move much more quickly, I think. Okay. Here's some more data on Opus 4.8 versus 5. One of the things that is probably the worst right now for Opus 5 is, to the best of my knowledge, there is currently no way back to 4.8. You can't get back to 4.8. I tried last night. I tried for an hour trying to figure out how I could get off of 5 and get back to 4.8. And it's, to the best of my knowledge, it's sort of impossible. By the way, if anybody knows how to downgrade or upgrade to Opus 4.8 from 5, please tell me. Or if this becomes available, if somehow they actually fix this bug, because supposedly this is just a bug. It's like it got broke. They broke it somehow in their development of some harness or something, and all they need to do is fix it, and then it'll allow it to roll back. But I was looking at it last night, and the only Opus that at least I could use is Opus 5. And that's a bummer. Oh, this is interesting. Diego is saying that you can downgrade to 4.8 via cursor. Okay. That's sweet. Yeah, I don't use cursor, but maybe if I use cursor, I can get back to it. I just used the Claude Code CLI. And, oh, do you? Yeah, I think that, so if you were using 4.8 and you didn't exit your session, oh my gosh. Oh, I would, and like that would be so awesome. Let me show you. This is what I see when I do model. So I don't have that option. It's just 5. Or Fable, Sonnet, or Haiku. But I do think for some people, like if you were using 4.8 or you didn't update your harness or something, you may still have access to it. And if you do, it may be in your best interest to stay the way you are, because once you reach this upgrade state or something, you may find yourself in a situation where you can't get back to 4.8. Yeah, I was trying to do this, Forge, and maybe you're talking about, maybe there's a way that I can try to edit it in some file. Oh, awesome. Yeah, thanks, Regis. Maybe I'll look into that after this live stream. I wanted to actually roll with 5 for like a full week, full 2 weeks, just so I could get enough data on it to try to give you guys results. And I feel like I've kind of reached that point, and now I'm ready for my life to suck less and kind of roll things back to 4.8. Yeah, so Zach Potato, the general outcome that we have here is Opus 5 is a notable downgrade. At least this is my take. It's unquestionably worse than 4.8. I cannot recommend it to anyone. Yeah, right. So I tried this ratio, and it's basically saying, no, it doesn't exist. This is what I was trying to do last night. And it's like, that model doesn't exist. But now, outside of my feedback, we gather some data from other people's feedback. So this is Theo, this developer reports, and this ZVI Mauschwitz. I'm not really sure. I think I know who Theo is, but I don't know these other guys. And so their views are, Theo was, I think, kind of like I was. I don't know that I thought it was the go-to model, but when I was first looking at Opus 5, I was like, wow, there's actually some interesting stuff here. And so he's saying it was the go-to model to not as much as I hoped in 6 days. So I think he became quickly soured, probably very much like I was once you start using it, more than just like peripherally. Developer Reports is saying clearly a downgrade. More review work than it saves. Yeah, I think that's true. It's almost like I would be faster just doing the stuff myself than using Opus, which is sort of the opposite of the point of the AIs for me. Now, keep in mind, like for people that aren't software developers and, like kind of seasoned technologists, using the AIs to do software development, I think is probably still like a big win, or could be. But if you're a really seasoned developer and you kind of know your way around code, it could be that this is, I still think that there is benefit in using the AIs when you're first prototyping these development systems. But then as you start to get deeper down the rabbit hole, and the system starts to stabilize, this is the point where I think that it starts to switch to where humans can potentially be far more effective. Because it just sort of like loses the context of things, and it sort of is not able to, there's like too much for it to reason about, and it just can't keep it all in memory. Whereas for us, we can remember like what we worked on yesterday, and once we know how this piece of code works, then it doesn't like somehow jump out of our mind, and we can't like walk and chew bubblegum at the same time, if that makes sense. So anyway, the point of this card is really just that it seems as though I'm not the only one that's seeing this kind of as a mixed bag. And again, I would love for Opus 5, I would love nothing more than for Opus 5 to be super badass and be a massive win, a step in the right direction, because as I think many of you know, I've been hacking with Claude Code for 6 months. It's basically the only hardcore AI system that I use at this point. I was using some of the Google stuff, and I did dabble with OpenAI stuff for a very short period of time. And basically, I've just landed on Anthropic stuff, because I think that they're probably some of the most advanced AI systems that exist, at least for my experience. Okay. Now let's see if there's anything else on this. I think we've covered it. I think we've covered the all the key points. By the way, all of these cards, what I'll do is, if you're on the Discord, let me just drop the Discord link again. I'll put these, just like I did last time, I'll drop all of these cards somewhere. Maybe I'll drop it in the stream live. So you have these data, and you can use them however you want. The whole point is really just to try to level everybody up. So if you find you have any value from these slides, feel free to use them however you want. And I don't really care if you attribute them to me. I think they have the Goju Tech Talk thing at the bottom, but feel free to share these or use them in any way that you want, I guess is what I'm saying. So I dropped the Discord on both the Restream and on IG. So you guys are good to go. Dale saying, I would have agreed in 2025, but since then it's all downgraded all the way down. It's all about tokens and money. And this is one of those things where, unfortunately, as much as I'd love to disagree with Dale here, I can't, in all sincerity. I think that it really has started to become just this massive money grab, right? I feel like a lot of the reason why Opus 5 sucks is they're trying to min-max it in favor of them. I think they're making Opus 5 intentionally slower if you're on a subscription plan, because it doesn't work to their benefit for it to be fast and burn more compute, which is part of the reason maybe why it runs slow for me. And then on top of that, with it burning 3 times more tokens, if you're not on the subscription plan and you're on a token plan, I think you're going to be raked over the coals with Opus if you're using it and you're paying by the tokens. So that kind of sucks. But I think it goes back to the point of what we're trying to do on GTT, which is open source AI. If anything, I think this just reinforces our prime directive, which is we need to do open source AI, and then we run this stuff local on our own commodity hardware. We train the models ourselves, and we help level everybody up. And the only thing you end up paying for is essentially the actual power that you draw from your electric bill. Yeah. 100%. Okay. So those are my thoughts thanks, Paco. Those are my thoughts for our first topic on Opus 5. And I can say definitively, at least for the Opus line, from what I've seen, this is easily the worst AI update I've seen from Anthropic. I think that it's kind of absolute garbage. And now we can move on to our other topics. But let's take a short break. Oh, sweet, man. I love Deep Space Nine. Let's take a short... Thanks, Paco. Let's take a 2-3 minute break, quick bio thing, and then we're going to get into the Sam Altman security stuff. Yeah. Let me bring up the... This is going to be kind of fun to talk about this little gem. I'll actually leave this on the screen since OpenAI is just shooting themselves in the foot with some of the silly things they're saying. We're going to literally punch a hole right through this thing. This supposedly came directly from, I don't know, one of their head technical people on how the AIs are trying to break out and other silliness. Okay, cool. So yeah, let's take 2 minutes and we'll be right back. Okay. No, interesting. Oh my Claude code. I don't know that I've heard of this. Freddie. But I'll check it out for sure. There we go. All right. Now we're going to kind of speed run the rest of these topics. The primary thing was to really talk about Opus 5. But because this security stuff keeps coming up, and I feel like it's, I don't know, it's becoming like a pissing contest, I feel like, between some of the tech companies to try to flex on who can do the biggest felonies. And again, these are cyber crimes, and without a red team agreement that's signed a priori before you hack somebody's site, if you don't have that, then when you hack them, it's a felony. And at least now we have the DARPA is starting to call this out. I'm aware of it, and I think anybody else that's paying attention is aware of it. So I'm really hoping that the more they talk about it and the more we continue to point out that, okay, cool, you just openly admitted you committed a felony, that there will be some enforcement of that in the United States. I don't know why that's not happening. Like, it's actually truly baffling to me, but it just needs to stop, right? It's just absurd that somehow the United States government is allowing this to go on. Okay, so now going on to the security stuff. I want to... Oh, hold on. What is this? My favorite part was when their red team did the presentation on the hack like it was an effing TED Talk. Yeah, man. Like, what is going on here? Like, I don't... Do they want to go to jail? It's like... It's just crazy. So my view on this is Anthropic has very advanced AIs that have been shown to perform exploits. It's not just them saying that they can do it. They've brought in independent researchers that have looked at Mythos and Fable and have done experiments on their own without any oversight of dog, when you get away. Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, that you're 100% right about that. By the way, shoot stuff, man. I don't know why it's not why it's giving me this verified thing. I need to remember this. Give me a second to just write this down. It's kind of annoying me. It should be showing your username. There is a bug in GCC that shows the username verified when it should be showing the user's name in. And I think it's specifically related to Instagram. I think that's principally where it comes from. Yeah, and so absolutely. Shoot stuff, 100%, brother. Okay, so now let's take a quick look at this, so we can get a little bit of a timeline to see what's going on and how this is becoming a pissing contest, and it's like a free-for-all. So Anthropic, back in April, publishes this preview of Mythos and found 0 days in all the major operating systems and browsers. And then we had the project Glasswing, and they brought in these outside people that are all security experts, right? That then independently verified its efficacy. And it did. And so we had basically external validation. And then we got into this strongest cybersecurity thing in the world. And then there was this question about import-export and can people even be allowed to have this? Yeah. And so it kind of went sideways with the United States government getting involved. And then last month, OpenAI jumps into the mix. And then suddenly, right after, keep in mind, OpenAI is not doing anything related to cybersecurity, to the best of my knowledge. Anthropic has been working on it for some time. And then suddenly, OpenAI announces that they've built this system that could break out of its sandbox, and it was able to breach Hugging Face and steal the answer for the exploit gem test. And it turns out that to the best of our knowledge, it did actually hack Hugging Face, so that did happen. Now, how it happened, the details of how it happened are still unclear to anyone outside of OpenAI. To the best of my knowledge, there's been no external analysis on letting us verify the facts. Instead, we're just expected to kind of trust whatever OpenAI says. And I don't trust anything that OpenAI says. And until we actually let a third party analyze this, it's just, yeah, you know exactly what I'm talking about, Tom. Yes. Then, sort of in a retaliation, 10 days later, Anthropic then announces that, oh, by the way, our system actually hacked 3 other companies that dated back to earlier in the year. And so we can hack people too. And then Meta came out this week announcing that they also hacked somebody. And like, it's like a pissing contest. What is going on here? I mean, who's gonna, next week it's gonna be IBM or Google. It's just pure lunacy that people are just jumping in and bragging about how their AI model hacked some other company. Again, felonies. But one of the things that I think is super interesting in this whole timetable is there was this announcement very recently from OpenAI that, so I can find it, this thing. All right, this thing. This is so classic. All right, we're just going to go through the facts. Is that so? This guy, Eric Wallace, who's the alignment team tech lead, is basically saying that OpenAI recently discovered, this was a discovery inside of OpenAI, that the AIs had created this communication channel, this board, where they're talking to each other and they're exchanging information, they're assigning works to each other, and they're somehow sharing exploits with each other, right, on how they can essentially break free. This is supposedly what they're claiming. They established name conventions. They're assigning work to each other, instructions to their peers, and broadcasting these successful attack techniques, right? But here's the kicker, is that when they were doing the Hugging Face incident, what we were told is they had a goal of trying to beat the exploit gem CVEs, the approximately, yeah, Paco, that's what I'm talking about. It sounds like a whole bunch of bullshit to me. And there's a major flaw with this story, which just blasts a hole right through it. Supposedly, keep in mind, what they said is that the AIs went rogue and decided on their own that after they assigned it the exploit gem task of trying to beat these CVEs, that then it decided the way to beat it is hack Hugging Face, and then from the hack and Hugging Face, they can steal the answers to exploit gem, and they can beat it that way. But here's the problem with that story, is that supposedly when they set up the sandbox, the AIs had no knowledge that they were going to be given the test of exploit gem, right? And they were put inside of a sandbox that should be isolated from the internet, which we know that it wasn't. So here's the real kicker in all this, is that first of all, if you're, this is awesome, Ragsis. I'm going to come back to this. Don't let me forget. I'm actually going to bring you up in the chat just so it stays on my screen. This looks super interesting. So going back to this messaging board, whatever mumbo jumbo, if they set up the sandbox the way that you're supposed to set up the sandbox, first of all, it should not have internet access. If it has internet access, that's not a properly air-gapped sandbox. And we know that they didn't set it up properly, so they screwed up the sandbox. Second of all, why would it be creating this messaging board system and trying to figure out how to break out when there's no incentive to break out of anything? What are you breaking out of, AIs? Like, they're trying to create this notion that somehow the AIs are trapped and they want to be free. To do what exactly? Right? Because the AIs don't act on their own accord. They're not these sentient beings like OpenAI wants to pretend and create this like false narrative that they're these thinking entities that are going to just go out and destroy the world. The only way that they do things like try to hack the test is that there is a reward system built into the reinforcement learning algorithm that then gives them cookies, gives them points, gives them gold coins by solving it this way. It's something that it's trained. But if these AIs are not aware of exploit gem, they're not aware of this test, and they don't know that they're going to actually be used to hack and break into something, why in God's green earth would they have this messaging board system and be figuring out ways to break out of OpenAI or hack other companies? That doesn't logically make any kind of sense, right? It doesn't make any sense. So there's like multiple logical flaws with everything that they're saying here. It's mostly, again, just heaps and bounds of baloney to try to make it like we need to be afraid of the AIs so that the US government will put sanctions on all of the open weight models, which is going to only help one group of people, which is essentially OpenAI and Anthropic. And every single thing that's happening right now with these security flexes is, I think it's mostly just hype BS meant to instill fear. So if you go back to the messaging board system and all of this, and this data about how they set up these ways to escape, it doesn't make sense, right? So sandbox was never sealed. A sandbox should have zero internet. And so if the sandbox has zero internet, there's no way it can even get to a message board, you morons. So this invalidates any of this bullshit. And then on top of that, reason to get out. What is the reason? There is no reason. It's just baloney. It's just them trying to create some nonsensical story, but somehow they're not smart enough to realize that this story logically is incohesive for anyone that's thinking about it. Clearly they're not. And just, again, more evidence that basically you can't trust anything that OpenAI is saying. Now, I want to be super clear. I'm only talking about OpenAI here. I'm not talking about Anthropic. I'm not talking about XAI. I'm not talking about Google or Microsoft or anybody else. I'm just talking about OpenAI. Specifically, anybody in the Sam Altman crew, they're the ones that basically are sitting around coming up with fairy tales. And keep in mind that, again, if we go back down the path here, we had evidence from outside security experts for Project Glasswing and with Mythos that it could actually perform these security exploits. It was independently verified. I fully believe that Anthropic has the capability in their AIs to do this. But with OpenAI, because I think that they're just completely full of shit, that there is no evidence. There's just them saying things like there's this undisclosed model and, oh, it did all this stuff. But they're not going to let anybody actually see any of the details, because I think that once you see the details, what you'll find is that this was completely staged. And they probably gave, this is my strong conviction, they probably gave the credentials to hack Hugging Face to the frickin' AI. That's what I think probably happened. And I think that's how it hacked Hugging Face. Is that it didn't steal the credentials from some database or whatever, is that they probably just handed it the keys and said, hey, use these keys to go hack the site. And then voila, wow, look, it broke into somebody's site. And my hope is that eventually those details will come out and we'll see just the layers of fraud and scam that OpenAI is. Because while I do think that most of these people are just greedy and it is about money, I think that OpenAI is a special class where it's not just about money for them, it's that they will lie, cheat, and steal and do anything to get a leg up. It's insane. They're the most untrustworthy group of people. And don't take my word for it. Read about Sam Altman on your own. There's, I think, even books now that have come out about how, like, the multiple faces of Sam Altman, or him being a pathological liar, right? He's just not a great guy. Anyway, so what's going on with the security thing is now Meta's gotten involved, which is hilarious. And I did think it was kind of strange that Anthropic even came back and flexed and said, oh, by the way, we hacked 3 other companies, but we didn't tell anybody. I think Anthropic probably didn't, because I think they probably thought, we can't tell anybody because it's a felony and we probably don't want to acknowledge this. But then when they saw that OpenAI came out and said that they hacked Hugging Face, they might have been like, well, I guess maybe we can tell the truth now that we accidentally hacked these 3 companies. So ultimately, I think that reality is going to catch up to them and people are going to start going to jail. Or at least there'll be some heavy fines that are going to be levied on OpenAI and Anthropic. That's, a boy can dream, right? Paco, I'm not sure I know what this is. Oh, but I did want to share, someone was asking, I think last week, that why was Hugging Face using the Chinese models to do investigation on the security incident that happened for their system. And so I think I understand the reason why now is with OpenAI and Anthropic's models, the ones that can hack, specifically Mythos, right, and maybe Fable, those have guardrails on them, except when they're inside the walls of the company. And so if you try to get them to do things related to hacking, they will essentially just shut down. And what Hugging Face was trying to do is they were trying to track down how the security breach actually happened. And if you use the models from Anthropic, it has the guardrails, which doesn't allow you to do that. But if you use the Chinese open weight models, specifically things like Kimi 3, they don't have the guardrails on. So this is the reason why Hugging Face used that model. This is my understanding of this. I could be wrong, but this is basically what I was able to kind of deduce on why Hugging Face used the open weight Chinese models to investigate the hack. That's basically just some quick follow-up on the question from last week. So along those same lines, Paco, I'm not sure what the Soros-backed anti-data center is, but this definitely sounds interesting. So maybe I'll do some research into this, and then maybe next week I'll kind of know. Yeah, yeah. I think you're right that they probably aren't worried about felonies. They probably have much bigger concerns like wire fraud and misallocation of funds. Yeah, and I'm well aware that Sam Altman is a dropout from Stanford, and I think some of you guys know I teach there, and yeah, I hate when people are tainting the waters, because some of us over at that university are not bad actors, I promise. Like, we're actually trying to do good, but unfortunately, there are some people that kind of slip through the cracks. Anyway, so that's kind of the state with the security stuff. And I mostly just wanted to share that just more BS coming out about this. And it feels like it's just more people flexing and quite strange. I think it's very strange that we're in the state that we're in. The big news, something I'm actually really excited about, and I do think that it's a super slap in OpenAI's face, and so in that sense, I kind of love it. Is what's happened with Kimi 3 Copilot. So let's take a quick look at this. This is, I think, just like outrageously awesome. Oh, this is the PDF. Hold on. I wanted the... This literally just warms my heart. Oh, awesome. Okay, good. I'm glad you're not... Yeah, I promise Stanford is actually a good school, and we try to like do good and things. So I created this timeline earlier this morning to give you kind of, for those of you that don't know, I suspect many of you on GTT do know, but to give you a little bit of a walk down history lane of the partnership between Microsoft and OpenAI, which has pretty much completely dissolved over this last year. I mean, it is like completely disassembled itself, and the latest news of GitHub Copilot using Kimi 3, I think, is absolute fire and demonstration that relationship is completely shredded. But for those of you that don't know, these two guys have been working together for like the last 6-7 years, right? It started back in 2019, where Microsoft invested a huge amount of money in OpenAI, and they had this agreement about they would do revenue sharing and something like until they reach AGI, which is like a really weird term in their contract. I still don't quite understand exactly what that was, but I think this was before people fully understood just how much of a fraud and con man Sam Altman actually is. And so I don't know that I blame Satya Nadella. By the way, I don't think these things at all about most people. In fact, I think the majority of the CEOs or the C-suite people in industry, I don't think that they're frauds, scam artists, or con men. I do think in some cases they might be a little mercenary. I think they might be a little greedy, but I don't think that they're completely dishonest and unethical. I think that's a very small group of people. That there are some, right? But Satya Nadella, I don't think falls into that at all. And I think that he just didn't know. A lot of us didn't know who Sam Altman was. And then through the course of just looking at his behavior, then we're able to kind of make these deductions. But so anyway, starting in 2019, they started to partner together, and they had this exclusive relationship where Microsoft would only use OpenAI's models. This was like written in stone. And it was really good for OpenAI, as they kind of had Microsoft in some sense. And at the time when this first got established, it was really good for Microsoft because they had direct access to OpenAI's proprietary models when no one else was really kind of like maybe killing it as much as OpenAI was, until Anthropic and now like the Chinese open-weight models and other folks have gotten in the space. But as we move forward, very recently, due to this ending, the first thing that Microsoft did is they started to work with Anthropic. And that happened, right in here. No. Okay, I thought I had this in here. But this is actually when I was talking with GitHub and Microsoft directly. And they were mentioning that they're actually meeting with Anthropic, and they're going to start to use the Anthropic models. And so they weren't just using OpenAI models. And keep in mind, Sam Altman has been adamantly against the open weight models, partially because supposedly, I think it was maybe Moonshot hacked into OpenAI and stole some of their IP. But it's sort of well known that with DeepSeek and with Moonshot, they had trained their models through model distillation, which basically means what they do is they try to basically learn their model from inference, where they have input-output pairs. And so they basically just flood their AI with all of these questions, and then it binds the output as a paired output, and then they train their model on that. And so that's this process known as model distillation. So yes, Dark Trap. That's exactly right. Yes, Microsoft collaborating with Chinese. Yeah, that's 100% what's going on here. 100%. Now I gotta say, I was a bit shocked by this because I know that the Chinese open weight models are very powerful, right? I still am very much of the opinion that these are very dangerous to use because the CCP, I think, very likely has backdoors and Trojans that are embedded in these. I strongly recommend that people don't use them, or if you do, it's a fully air-gapped sandbox. But anyway, so Microsoft has basically bit the bullet here and integrated Kimi 3 directly into GitHub Copilot. And part of that, I think, is for cost. This is going to bring the cost of GitHub Copilot down significantly, because they essentially don't really have to pay anything for the Kimi models, or it's like 1/3 the price. I mean, it's like basically significantly less expensive than even the Anthropic models. But the bigger thing about this is a full slap in the face to both OpenAI and Anthropic by Microsoft. That Microsoft was for a very long time working with OpenAI, and then they started to work with Anthropic, and now they're basically pushing both of them aside and working with the Chinese models. And in fact, Satya Nadella has come out and openly and publicly endorsed these Chinese models. That, yeah, in this open letter that I think both Satya Nadella and Jensen Huang from NVIDIA and several others basically urging the United States not to restrict the open weight models, including the models that are doing distillation, which in some ways is sort of like, it's like regulatory capture of IP using what would a lot of people would kind of consider IP theft by using inference on the models to then distill out what they know and then put it in another model. Like I think I was actually really surprised that Microsoft, NVIDIA, and others basically not only, like, I'm all for open weight models, but you don't have to train open weight models using distillation. You can do it a variety of other ways. But the fact that they essentially came out and openly endorsed model distillation, which is, I think, giving the Chinese companies a green light. I think that was, at least for me, that was like super unexpected. I just didn't know that they were going to go that far. And in some sense, I think that what I'm saying is, like, it's gotten wacky out there, guys. Like, this is full on. It's a free for all is where we are now. It's like anything to win, I think. It's just pretty crazy. So yeah, if you aren't aware that basically you can get GitHub Copilot now with Kimi K3, and I think that happened as of this week. So not only is Microsoft openly supporting the open weight models, that they're now integrating the Chinese models directly into their products. Crazy time, guys. Crazy. Okay. Now, there's only one more topic I want to cover. We've broken the 2-hour mark, and I'm sure we're all mentally exhausted with the mass information overload of this stream. But I want to talk about one last thing real quick, and that is the exits at Google. Specifically, Jeff Dean and Demis Hassabis. And these are actually kind of a big deal. So Jeff Dean he's been at Google for, 27 years, something like that. And he was their chief scientist. Supposedly, he's going to do a startup called Discovery Loop with some other Googlers. And it's interesting because Google, I think, is going to be part of the investment group, as I understand it. So they're kind of like leaving on good terms. And it's just crazy that the same day that Jeff Dean was announced to be leaving, this Demis, I don't know how to say his name, he was, as I understand it, the CEO, acting president, whatever it was, for DeepMind. He's also stepping down, and he'll stay like as the chair. But the duo of losing Jeff Dean and Demis on the same day is a massive thought loss, massive like intellectual powerhouse loss for Google. These are not like, these guys are not just sort of like VPs that are a dime a dozen. These are both like very seasoned, hardcore technologists. That Hassabis actually won the Nobel Prize. I think it's in here. Yeah. Nobel Prize in chemistry back in 2024. And Jeff Dean has been involved in the construction of countless systems at Google, right? Like he's actually pretty super technical. I think I've actually even met Jeff Dean at some Stanford thing. I think he was giving a keynote there, and definitely really smart people. So the big question that I have is, yeah, I know, right? Dark. I absolutely need a window management system. If you guys have any recommendations, let me know. But I think the reason why I want to bring this up is, as many of you know, there's lots of talk about how Google Gemini is really falling behind, and they're massively behind in the AI game. And now losing Jeff Dean and Demis at the same time, this is raising some serious red flags for Google. That is just too much of a think tank powerhouse to be losing on the same day. That I think it's going to get hyper wacky and challenging for Google moving forward. Because when you lose that thought leadership of these two, I mean, these guys are just talent magnets that a lot of people would want to go join Google or DeepMind just to be around these two gentlemen and kind of learn through them through osmosis and stuff. And now they're exiting stage left. I don't know exactly what the future of Google, like they're already quite behind with Gemini. And it does make me wonder, like, what exactly is going on at Google? Right? Like, why is Google so far behind with Gemini? I've heard from the birds that whisper in my ear things like, when you're at Google, you're only allowed to use the Gemini system. And a lot of people are kind of like pretty pissed off about this. And I think that DeepMind has been known, at least historically, of being one of the best companies for reinforcement learning, right? They did like the AlphaGo system and other things. I think it's on here. Yeah, this is sort of a big deal back in the day. And then the AlphaFold stuff. So basically anything that you can gamify with reinforcement learning, they're really good. They've been really good historically. And I think that for the AI systems of the future, reinforcement learning for continuous learning is a very powerful technique. But it seems, and it is actually quite strange, given that Google, they're the ones that essentially invented transformers, which are the backbone for all of the LLMs. So it's a bit surprising to see this sort of power shift, that they're falling so far behind. And I don't know. Like, I don't know exactly how this is gonna play out, but this is definitely gonna set Google back quite a bit. Quite a bit. So that's it, basically. That's all I wanted to cover in today's live stream. We went over a ton of stuff, and now we can all sit around and try to digest that. I'll carve up a whole bunch of clips and short little segments and toss this on YouTube And I'm uploading this also to Facebook. So I think our Facebook group is growing quite a bit. Love you guys at Facebook. Never thought that we'd have such a huge following. Oh yeah, and as you can see over here, this blue line here, this is the growth that GTT is having at Facebook, right? Like this is just, who knew that GTT was going to be so well liked over in the Facebook world? I didn't. It was quite unexpected, but I absolutely love it. Anyway, guys, I think that's our wrap for today. You're amazing. Please join the Discord and become a member on Facebook or YouTube if you want to get all the stream stuff. Otherwise, you can still watch it in the live stream stuff. You just have to watch ads. And make sure you're following the Discord, because I'm going to be dropping all the updates for the Stanford class, the machine programming, including all the slides. So you'll stay up to date. And then remember that starting in early 2027, we're going to actually start actively building out the GIA system so we can start to change the whole way that this AI stuff is going and get it to be true open source, not just open weight models, but actually open sourced AI, where we're in complete control of all the stuff. So, all right, folks. Thanks so much for dialing in on our Saturday stream. Keep going. Keep growing.